They were sentenced to life in prison in 1996. The world forgot about them. But behind those walls, something unexpected happened. Lyle and Erik Menendez didn't just survive prison, they transformed it. And what they've done in the last 35 years might change everything you think you know about them. April 20, 1996. The verdict had just been read. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lyle Menendez, 28 years old, stood in the courtroom. His face showed no emotion. Erik Menendez, 25, stood beside him. His eyes were wet, but he didn't cry. The judge spoke. "You will be remanded to the custody of the California Department of Corrections. You will serve your sentences at separate facilities." That last sentence hit harder than the verdict itself. Separate facilities. For the first time since they were children, Lyle and Erik would be apart, not just in different rooms, in different prisons, miles apart. As bailiffs led them away in handcuffs, they looked at each other one last time. No words were spoken, but everyone in that courtroom felt it. These two brothers, who had been inseparable their entire lives, were being torn apart. Lyle was sent to Mule Creek State Prison in Northern California, a maximum security facility known for violence and gang activity. Erik was sent to California State Prison, Sacramento, also maximum security, also dangerous. When Lyle entered his cell for the first time, he sat on the metal bed. He looked at the concrete walls, the tiny window, the steel toilet, and for the first time since the murders, he allowed himself to feel it. This was forever. There was no appeal that would work, no pardon coming, no early release. He would die in this cell, or one like it. Erik's first night was different. He didn't sit quietly. He paced, back and forth. 3 steps one way, turn, 3 steps back. A guard watched him through the bars. "First night is always the hardest," the guard said. Erik stopped pacing. "How do you survive this? How do you live when you know you'll never leave?" The guard shrugged. "Some guys don't. Some guys find a reason." What happened in the next 6 months would shock everyone who knew them. Because the brothers who entered prison were not the same men who would emerge years later. The first 6 months were hell. Lyle was placed in protective custody initially, not because he requested it, but because prison officials knew high-profile inmates were targets. The Menendez name was famous. Other inmates wanted to make a name for themselves. In protective custody, you're isolated. 23 hours a day in your cell. 1 hour of yard time. Alone, in a cage. Lyle later described it in a prison interview. "I thought I'd go insane. The silence was worse than the noise. I would count the bricks on the wall. I counted them every day. There were 1,247 bricks. I knew every crack in every one." Erik wasn't in protective custody. He was in general population, and that brought different dangers. Other inmates tested him immediately. They wanted to see if this rich kid from Beverly Hills would fight back. One incident changed everything. 3 weeks into his sentence, Erik was in the prison yard. A man approached him. A gang member, covered in tattoos. Twice Erik sighed. "Hey, rich boy. I heard you killed your parents for money. That true?" Erik didn't respond. "What, you don't talk? You think you're better than us?" The man pushed Erik hard. Erik stumbled back. Every inmate in the yard stopped what they were doing. They watched, because this moment would define Erik's entire prison experience. If he backed down, he would be prey forever. If he fought back, he might earn respect, or he might get killed. Erik made a choice. He stepped forward and looked the man in the eyes. "I killed my father because he abused me for years. I'm not proud of it, but I'm here now, just like you, and I'm not looking for trouble, but I won't be pushed around either." Silence. The man stared at Erik for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. "All right, rich boy. All right, you got heart. I respect that." He walked away. Erik had passed the test. He wouldn't be bothered again. In separate prisons, unable to see each other, Lyle and Erik did the only thing they could. They wrote letters. Every week, sometimes every day, they wrote. The prison system allowed it. The letters were screened, but they got through. These weren't just updates about prison life. They were lifeline. Lyle's first letter to Erik, dated May 1996. "Erik, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about that night. I keep wondering if we did the right thing. I know we were scared. I know we thought we had no choice, but Mom and Dad are dead, and we're the reason. I don't know how to live with that." Erik's response: "Lyle, I think about it every day too. The guilt doesn't go away, but we have to find a way to live with it, because if we don't, then their deaths mean nothing, and ours don't either. We have to find a purpose here. We have to." This exchange marked a turning point. Both brothers realized something. They couldn't change the past. They couldn't bring their parents back. They couldn't undo the murders, but they could choose what they did with the rest of their lives. What they chose to do next shocked prison officials, family members, and even other inmates. because it wasn't what anyone expected. 1997. 1 year into their sentences, Lyle Menendez enrolled in every educational program Mule Creek offered, GED classes, even though he'd attended Princeton, vocational training, anger management, victim impact courses. But he didn't just take classes, he started teaching them. He helped other inmates prepare for their GED exams. He tutored them in math and English. He spent hours in the prison library, helping men who could barely read learn to write their names. One of those men was Marcus Johnson, serving 25 to life for armed robbery, high school dropout, functionally illiterate. "I thought Lyle was some rich snob," Marcus said in a later interview, "but he sat with me for 6 months. Patient, never talked down to me, treated me like I mattered. When I passed my GED, I cried. First time I'd accomplished anything in my life. And Lyle, he cried too. He said, 'You did this, Marcus. This is yours.'" Marcus got out in 2015. He now works as a construction foreman. He has 2 kids. He credits Lyle Menendez with saving his life. Erik took a different path. He discovered he had a talent for art. Drawing, specifically. He started with simple sketches, then portraits, then complex pieces. But he didn't keep his art for himself. He started an art program in his prison. He taught other inmates how to draw, how to express themselves creatively, how to process their emotions through art instead of violence. One inmate, serving life for murder, said this: "Before Erik's class, I was angry all the time. I got in fights. I spent years in solitary. But art gave me a way to let it out. I'm still angry sometimes. But now I draw it instead of fighting it." 1999, 3 years into their sentences, Lyle Menendez received a letter from a woman named Anna Erickson. She had been writing to him since the trial, a pen-pal relationship that had grown into something more. They had never met in person, but they had fallen in love through letters. Anna proposed marriage. Lyle said yes. They were married on July 4, 1996, in a ceremony at Mule Creek State Prison. Anna wore a simple dress. Lyle wore his prison uniform. No physical contact was allowed. They couldn't kiss, couldn't hold hands, couldn't consummate the marriage, but they were married. The media had a field day. Headlines screamed, "Killer Menendez brother gets married in prison." Critics called it a publicity stunt. Some said Anna was mentally ill, but Anna defended her decision. "I know what Lyle did. I know he killed his parents, but I also know the man he is now, and that's the man I love." The marriage lasted 4 years. They divorced in 2001, not because Anna stopped loving him, but because the restrictions were too difficult. No physical contact, no normal life, just letters and occasional visits through glass. But in 2003, Lyle met someone else, Rebecca Sneed, a magazine editor. She had covered his trial. She started writing to him professionally, then personally. They married in 2003, and this time, it lasted. Rebecca is still married to Lyle today, over 20 years later. Erik's story was different. In 1997, he received a letter from Tammy Sakaman. She was married at the time, with a daughter, but she had been following the Menendez case. She believed Erik's abuse claims. She wrote to him, not as a fan, as someone who understood trauma. Tammy's first husband died by suicide in 1996. She was grieving. Erik was grieving. They connected over their shared pain. They started writing. Then phone calls. Then visits. In 1999, Tammy divorced her husband. They had separated before his death, but the divorce wasn't finalized. She married Erik on June 12, 1999. Critics attacked her too. "How can you marry a murderer?" Tammy's response: "Erik didn't murder a stranger. He killed his abuser. I was abused as a child. I understand what that does to you. I understand why he felt he had no choice. And I believe in redemption. I believe people can change." Tammy and Erik are still married today, 25 years later. She visits him every week. She advocates for his release. She runs a website dedicated to his case. But the most shocking transformation was yet to come. In 2018, something happened that nobody thought possible. February 2018, 22 years after they were separated, the California Department of Corrections announced a transfer. Erik Menendez was being moved from Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility to Mule Creek State Prison, the same prison as Lyle. When the announcement came, both brothers were stunned. Lyle was 50 years old now. Erik was 47. They had aged. They had gray hair. Lines on their faces. They were different men than the boys who entered prison. The last time they had physical contact was April 1996, 22 years ago. The day of the reunion, prison officials arranged for them to meet in a common area. Media wasn't allowed. No cameras. No press. Just 2 brothers seeing each other for the first time in over 2 decades. Lyle entered the room first. He waited. His hands were shaking. Then Erik walked in. They stopped. They looked at each other. Neither spoke. And then they ran to each other and embraced. A prison guard who witnessed it said, "I've worked in prisons for 30 years. I've seen thousands of reunions, family visits, brothers coming back together, but I've never seen anything like that." They held each other, and they both just broke down. Grown men, crying like children. It was the most human thing I've ever seen in this place. They were allowed to hug for 30 seconds. Then they had to separate. But from that day forward, they were housed in the same facility. They could see each other during yard time. They could talk. They could be brothers again. 2024. Lyle is 56. Erik is 53. They've been in prison for 28 years. Their daily routine is structured. Morning, 6 a.m. wake up, breakfast and work assignment, prison jobs, afternoon, yard time, weather permitting, educational programs, phone calls with family, limited, evening, dinner, cell time, letters, reading, art. They live in separate cells but see each other daily in the yard. They play basketball together. They talk. They laugh. Other inmates describe them as regular guys. One inmate said, "You'd never know they're famous. They don't act like celebrities. They're just normal. They help people. They don't cause trouble. They're respected." Lyle serves as a hospice volunteer in the prison. He sits with dying inmates. He holds their hands. He listens to their stories. "Nobody should die alone," Lyle said in an interview. "I took 2 lives. I can't give them back, but maybe I can make the end easier for someone else." Erik runs the prison art program. He has taught hundreds of inmates. His murals decorate the prison walls. One of his murals is of 2 hands reaching toward each other, but not quite touching. When asked what it means, Erik said, "It's me and Lyle. For 22 years we reached for each other, but couldn't touch. Now we can, but we'll never be truly free. The hands never quite meet. That's our reality." But in 2023, something happened that gave them hope for the first time in decades. New evidence emerged that could change everything. May 2023, a documentary was released, Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed. In it, Roy Rosselló, former member of the boy band Menudo, made a shocking allegation. "Jose Menendez raped me when I was 13 years old." This was explosive, because Jose Menendez worked for RCA Records, which signed Menudo, and Roy's allegation corroborated exactly what Lyle and Erik had claimed in their trial. Their father was an abuser, but there was more. A letter was found, written by Erik to his cousin Andy Cano in December 1988, 8 months before the murders. In it, Erik wrote,
"I've been trying to avoid Dad.
It's still happening. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's worse now. I think he knows I'm thinking about telling someone. Andy, I don't know what to do." This letter was never presented at the 1996 trial. The defense didn't know it existed, but Andy Cano had kept it, and when he died in 2003, his mother found it. She held on to it for 20 years, until 2023. Now, it was evidence. The Menendez brothers' defense team filed a habeas corpus petition. They argued, "This new evidence proves our clients told the truth about the abuse. The jury convicted them without knowing this. They deserve a new trial." The Los Angeles District Attorney, George Gascon, reviewed the case. In October 2024, he made an announcement. "I believe the Menendez brothers have been rehabilitated. I support their resentencing." The courtroom hearing was scheduled for December 2024, but not everyone wanted them released. Milton Anderson, Kitty Menendez's brother, opposed it strongly. "My sister and brother-in-law were murdered in cold blood," he said at a press conference. "No amount of abuse justifies what they did. They should die in prison." But other family members disagreed. Joan Vandermolen, Kitty's sister, supported their release. "I believe Lyle and Erik were abused. I believe they were scared. They've served 28 years. They've changed. They deserve a second chance." 24 family members signed a letter supporting their release. 6 family members signed a letter opposing it. The family was divided, just like America. On December 11th, 2024, the hearing took place. What happened in that courtroom will determine whether Lyle and Erik Menendez will ever walk free. December 11th, 2024, Los Angeles County Superior Court. The courtroom was packed. Media, family members, supporters, protesters. Lyle and Erik were brought in wearing suits, not prison uniforms. Suits. They looked older, grayer, but also calm. The judge, Michael Jessic, presided. The defense spoke first. "Your Honor, Lyle and Erik Menendez are not the same people who committed those crimes in 1989. They have spent 28 years becoming better men. They have educated themselves. They have helped others. They have shown genuine remorse, And now, with new evidence proving their abuse claims, justice demands reconsideration. The prosecution countered, "Your Honor, murder is murder. Rehabilitation doesn't erase the crime. Jose and Kitty Menendez are still dead, and while the defendants may have changed, they must still be held accountable." Then, Lyle spoke. For the first time in public in years, "Your Honor, I killed my father. I killed my mother. I live with that every single day. I can't bring them back. I can't undo what I did. But I can tell you this. I was terrified that night. I believed we were going to die, and I made a choice I wish I could take back." He paused. His voice broke. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect freedom. I just want people to know that we were telling the truth. We were abused, and we were scared. That doesn't make it right, but it's the truth." Erik spoke next. "I miss my mom every day. People don't believe that. They think I hated her. But I loved her, and I hate myself for what I did. If I could trade places with her, I would. If I could go back and just leave, run away, anything but what we did, I would. But I can't. So all I can do is try to be someone who does good now. Someone who helps people. That's all I have left." The courtroom was silent. As of early 2025, Lyle and Erik Menendez are still in prison. The judge postponed the resentencing hearing to January 2025 for further review. Their fate remains uncertain. If they are resentenced to manslaughter, as some legal experts suggest, they could be released immediately. Time served. If the resentencing is denied, they will remain in prison for the rest of their lives. But here's what we know for certain. In 1989, Lyle and Erik Menendez committed a terrible crime. They killed their parents with shotguns in their Beverly Hills home. In 1996, they were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. And in the 28 years since, they have transformed. They have become educators, artists, hospice volunteers, mentors. They have married. They have built relationships. They have helped hundreds of inmates. They have shown remorse. They have shown change. Does that earn them freedom? Some say yes. They were children. They were abused. They've served enough time. Some say no. They committed murder. Justice demands life sentences. The question isn't just about Lyle and Erik Menendez. It's about all of us. Do we believe in rehabilitation? Do we believe people can change? Or do we believe that some crimes are unforgivable, no matter how much time passes? Lyle Menendez, in a 2023 interview, said this, "I don't know if I deserve to be free. That's not for me to decide. But I know this. I'm not the same person I was in 1989. I'm not even the same person I was in 1996. Prison changed me. Not in the way people think. It didn't break me. It rebuilt me. And if I get out, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth that second chance." Erik Menendez said, "Every day I think about my mom and dad. Every single day. And every day I try to be someone they could be proud of. I know that sounds impossible, but it's all I have. The story isn't over yet. Maybe Lyle and Erik will walk free. Maybe they'll die in prison. But one thing is certain, they are no longer the scared, traumatized boys who pulled those triggers in 1989. They are men who have spent 3 decades trying to become better. Whether that's enough is for the justice system and for you to decide. The question isn't whether they deserve forgiveness. The question is whether we believe in redemption at all.